title of this presentation is Strategies on Adhering to Diet and Medication Regimen. And Carol is the mother of a person who has kidney disease, and she grew up as a teenager and now a young adult. And Meghna is actually been dealing with kidney disease since she was a child, and now she's married. I can't believe you're married. And she's also going to share her perspective. So it's my pleasure to welcome Meghna and Carol.
Thank you, Lori. Hi, Meghna. I wanted to start out by saying, just tell a little bit about myself. My daughter is an adult now, but when this started, she was 14. She was diagnosed, out of the blue with kidney failure, and a shock to us. She was 14, and it was due to a defective bladder, which we had no idea. She was the healthiest. We have 4 kids. She's the oldest. She was the healthiest. It was just really a shock. But the things that we went through when she was young were challenging because, first of all, I knew that my father had passed away from kidney disease he was 28 years old. He was young, from polycystic kidney disease. But I was young. We weren't faced with dealing with his health issues then. And so I really didn't know that much about kidney disease. So it was a crash course, as every parent has had to go through, where you are just looking for answers and trying to figure out how, to get your kids started on, medications and dietary changes and everything else. Excuse me. I found it very challenging. So I hope this is helpful. And the other thing that, parents know, but it doesn't hurt to mention is, your child can get marked as non-compliant if they're not taking their meds or their labs aren't coming back reflecting good diet choices. And so that's a real motivator to keep them healthy and compliant, because you want them to be able to get a transplant when they're eligible. So that was another motivating factor for us. So I just want to say I met Lori because when my daughter was 15 and we were looking for like a support group for teenagers, and I asked at the hospital, I asked the nephrologist's office, I asked anyone I could, and they all kept saying, oh, you need to talk to Lori Hartwell, because she was a teen patient. So I called Lori and we talked for an hour on the phone, and she just reassured me that everything was going to be okay. And then we went to a patient education meeting and met Lori and her staff. And it was really helpful just to know that we weren't alone. And I found that throughout our journey, that meeting other patients and parents has been really helpful. And I actually met Meg. I was searching for a kidney for my daughter on Craigslist, and so was Meg's mother. And so I wrote to her and I said, have you had any luck? And we started a back and forth conversation, and then ended up meeting Meg. And so we've known each other for a long time, and it's great to see her get a transplant and be healthy and married, and the little girl's growing up. Anyway, so Meg, why don't you go ahead and tell a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Carol. I don't know if I can, one up that introduction, but hello, everyone. My name is Meghna. I've had a kidney transplant. I'm going on, since 2014, I believe I'm going on 7 years post-transplant. Before that, I did dialysis, peritoneal dialysis at home for 2 years. Before then, I was a happy, healthy kid that didn't know anything about the world. And in about 2 months, you have a sudden realization of how the world can be, and how your body can fail at any moment in time. So fast forward 2 years post-dialysis, met a best friend named Jamie in college, and she's my organ donor. Jamie is now married. She also has a baby. She's doing great. So anyone that, is hesitant to be a donor, I always say, hey, look at my best friend. She's like living life over there, and I'm living life over here. I'm doing great. Post-transplant life has been challenging but rewarding at the same time. There's lots of ups, lots of downs. Some of the downs that we're going to talk about is how we stick to our medication regimen. Some of the ups are living life because of sticking to our medication regimen. So how we're going to do this panel today is Carol and I are going to just ask each other questions and answer them to our best abilities to be as informative as possible to our audience so they can gain the knowledge and wisdom that we wish we had, starting out our journeys. So yeah, that's it from me. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to write in the chat box. Carol, do you want to begin the questions?
Yeah, so Magna, regarding taking your pills, did you have any special methods for taking them, especially when you started out?
So when I started out, I was full force, all for it. I'm going to take them every single day, on time. And then I got tired. And then the reality of having kidney disease and being on dialysis. Let me just pause real quick. We're going to talk about pre-transplant here, just so nobody gets confused. On dialysis, a lot of things happen to your body. There are so many fluctuations that we don't know how to handle. And in order to keep the balance in our body, our doctors give us meds. It's up to us to take them. And it is so hard to take them. The best methods that I found to take my medication was to just do it. Get up, as annoying as it is, as hard as it is, get up off the bed, open the pill box, and just put them in your mouth and swallow them. That's number one. Number two is commitment to the process. You have to make it a routine. You have to set your alarms. You have to set little Apple Watches. You have to do everything that's possible in your power to keep yourself accountable for taking them. And number three is just being in a communal setting, not being by yourself. If you have family around you, if you have friends around you, be open about it. Say, hey, sometimes I forget. Do you mind if you just remind me, it's 12:30, I need to take my meds now? So those are my top 3 ways that I remember to take my medications. Carol, how did you help your child take the medications?
Well, it was a challenge. She was, as soon as she was diagnosed, they wanted her to take blood pressure pills, binders. There was a whole list of pills. Plus, she had to learn to self-catheterize to empty her bladder. So all of that was overwhelming for me, and I'm sure it was for her. The pills, I got her a watch that vibrated when it was time to take her pills. She, I'd help her set up her pill box and get everything sorted out. But it wasn't a routine. It was a challenge. It was reminders. And, teenagers are rebellious anyway. I mean, they do all kinds of risky things like, drive fast and, maybe experiment with drugs or whatever. So, you're dealing with somebody who is already willing to take risks. And so not taking medications for them is like, I'll be fine. And they won't be, but you do the best you can without being a nag, because of course, whatever you tell them, they may do the exact opposite, which is what you don't want to do, is get into that tug of war. So I think having those reminders helped. We did remind her a lot. There was a period of time that we found out that she wasn't taking her meds, and she would just put them in a box. And that was, can't tell you how freaked out I was. But, we had a talk about it. We talked to the doctor about it. And, we just came up with other tools. And we also started seeing therapists at that time. So I think that was helpful as well. But yeah, they're taking the pills has always been a challenge. I myself don't take any pills routinely. I don't have any medical problems, luckily. But I think for a lot of people, it's really hard, and you just have to do the best you can.
Right. And coming from a parent's perspective, I know my mother was the same way. She was on me 24/7. And that's something that I mentioned as being in a communal setting that helped a lot. If it wasn't for the people around me, I wouldn't take them. I'm still guilty of not taking them until, an hour past, 2 hour past. Because you know what? Some days I feel better off the medication because it has side effects. Some days I don't want the mental fog. Some days I'm just saying, hey, I'll push it off for an hour. But that's like the reality is nobody's perfect. We all have our flaws in how we take them. But at the end of the day, you take them. You kick, you cry, you scream. I know I did. And you take them no matter what it takes.
What sort of triggered you to avoid them? I mean, was there anything that you would just say, like you said, the brain fog or whatever?
Yeah.
Especially, I know with blood pressure medications, it can make you, depending on when you take them during the day, it can have effect on you.
Right. So some of my triggers, the first one that I had that a lot of people have, which is common with lisinopril, is the dry cough. I was going to school at that time. I'm doing dialysis, 14 hours a night. I'm waking up in the morning, I shoot my pills, and then I'm out the door to go to class. Well, lisinopril gives you a terrible dry cough. So I'm the only one sitting in my courses coughing and coughing and coughing to no avail, no matter how much hot tea I drink. Honey, I down. Lisinopril had its downfall. Well, guess what? I don't want to take it. I want to feel normal. I want to feel like my peers. And then my blood pressure goes up. Well, then to bring down such a high blood pressure, you have to take like a really strong blood pressure medication, which makes you feel like crap once it gets down really low. So my trigger was coughing, and that's just with blood pressure. I had other medications, Foslo, that you got to take every time you eat. That was the worst. It tasted like soap to me. I would avoid eating. I lost so much weight. I didn't want to take these pills with food. They just sucked. My trigger for Foslo was the taste. I didn't like how it tasted. So my mother came up with a plan. All right, take it with soda, because then at least the carbonation will wipe the taste from your mouth. All right, so I had a lot of ginger ale at my house, and that helped a little bit. Another trigger was just having to look at them. It's not a pleasant sight to see when you're a young adult. And I don't even know how, children younger than myself feel about that. Maybe they have a more positive outlook on life, which they should. But as a young adult, it sucks seeing 12 jars of medications that you got to rattle and shake and look at every day. Sometimes they don't smell good. And you're already hypersensitive to smells and tastes while being on dialysis. So those are some of the triggers for myself. Did you notice any with Jenna?
Yeah, I think very similar. The just having the pills all sitting there. Before she started dialysis, she was on some medications, and then when she started dialysis, it increased more. And I think the same thing. She, it was just a struggle. Just like, it's time to take your meds, time to take them. And I think for her, she probably resented a little bit emotionally being, poked and prodded, and, she just wanted to be normal. She didn't want to be having to take medication. She didn't want to go to dialysis, but she did it because we asked her to. But it was a challenge. And I think I remember I felt so stupid years later. She was supposed to take binders. It said take with meals. No, it said take with food. So we thought it just was because it would upset your stomach. We didn't know she was taking that because it was supposed to help, her chemistry of her body, to take them with food for a reason. I mean, I felt like the whole process was overwhelming to me as well. So I can imagine for her, it was just like, just show up and do what I'm told. And sometimes she would, and sometimes she wouldn't. And, you just have to be sensitive to that you might get some pushback, and, try not to get angry, and try not to lose your temper, because it's so important, but it's a different perspective from the kid than it is from us.
Oh,
Um,
definitely. When I used to take those binders, I had to take them in a very high amount. If I had one bite of food, that meant a binder went in next. If I had one bite, a binder went in next. My relationship with food was ruined because of those. I couldn't stand people eating or cooking around me because they didn't have to take the Foslo. It sucked that I had to do this and it tasted terrible and then I could enjoy my food, but everybody else is laughing and having a good time. So even certain things like watching people eat around me was a trigger. It was a reminder like, oh, I have to take these binders every day. I don't feel like eating anymore. That's a very common feeling. And like you said with your child, like there's no sense of privacy left when something that major occurs in your life. There literally can't be because everyone needs to make sure you're surviving.
right. Um,
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
oh, well, I was just going to say, was there anything from your point of view that helped you take the medications?
Um, the constant nagging of family. And I say family because, I was lucky enough to have a unit, a village that, came to help out during that time. It was everybody had a task. You take the morning meds, you take the binders, you watch the night meds, you make sure she gets on dialysis at this time. I can't say that I was left alone to do all of it, but it was a nice help to have them there and help me, stay accountable to taking my meds, to making sure that I was gonna be okay when my labs came, that I wasn't gonna have too much pain when dialysis time was around the corner. Um, but yeah, it was a village helped a lot. And I know sometimes it's hard for parents because parents will get burned out, it's something new for them, but you're a parent, you want to do everything to the end of the world to make sure, your child is thriving. If that means having someone come in from Colorado to babysit you while you're 19 years old, that's what it's going to take. A baby's always a baby in a parent's eyes. Okay, Carol, while we're talking about like the village coming to help me, what tips could you give to other parents on helping them give their children the medications and kind of helping them create those routines?
Yeah, I think my husband came up with, he wrote down the medications and he gave them each a number, and then he wrote the number in big script on top of each pill bottle. And that sort of helped kind of, be able to go through and fill the pill boxes quickly. But the problem with that is then you don't even really know what you're taking. And so, kids don't really want to learn about what medications they're taking and why they're taking it, but it's good to know because as they get older and they're taking complete responsibility for their pills, they need to know, that their prescription arrived correctly and that it's, it's the correct medication and correct dosage. But early on, we were doing that for her. And I just saw the other day, someone had mentioned there's a pill box you can fill and it has an alarm that goes off when it's time for your pills. And then it only doles out those pills that you put in for that cycle. So you can't accidentally take your night pills in the morning or the next day pills, which, you can forget. It's just like an endless, pill taking routine. And sometimes you forget if you took them or when you took them. So that kind of looked like a fun thing. Well, fun. I mean, for kids, I'm sure no pill taking is fun. Once this therapist said to my daughter, she said, you're having trouble keeping track of your catheterization. Why don't we make a fun chart? And then they looked at each other and they both burst out laughing, saying, there's no fun chart when it comes to catheterizing. So, you think of these, little things to try to do, but really it does take a lot of, in the early times, I think it takes a lot of parent involvement. Just like you said, your family is key to helping you to learn to do this because you're going to do it for the rest of your life.
Right. And like you said, There's nothing fun about kidney disease, except for the network's prom every year.
Yeah, there's no magic. Unfortunately, there's no magic to it. But like I said, if they're not taking them, there's a big risk that they're not going to be able to get a transplant. And for a parent, I mean, you'll walk through fire to help them do that. So, you know, I was very motivated to make it happen.
Right.
So, Meg, what would you say motivated you to take your meds?
Just feeling better. I felt better once I took my meds. If I didn't take them, if I had high blood pressure while on dialysis, I didn't feel good. I had migraines. I couldn't stand the sight of anybody. I couldn't stand the sound of anything. And my room was always above the kitchen, so there was always clanking going around. So that was really tough. But I needed to take them because I wanted to feel better. I knew that at 19, if I didn't take them, I was not going to get rid of the headache. I was not going to get rid of the irritability. I was not going to get rid of the light sensitivity. That registered in my brain at that time. And thank God it did, because I made sure to stay on point with them. If I didn't, I wouldn't be eligible for transplant. You're very correct. You have to be eligible for that transplant so you can move on in life, so you can get married, so you can go to college, or even if it's not those big goals, it's so you can take that trip that you wanted, so you can go to Disneyland, you know, with your friends without your parents there. You have to do it. You just, you got to swallow your pride. You got to really face the reality of it, and you just have to do it. I'm sorry if that got a little serious there, but it's like, you know, if you want that future, you know, write down your goals. Say, I want to do this post-transplant, and then do it. And it starts with taking those meds every single day. Every single 6 hours or 12 hours or whatever they are. I remember when I used to be on dialysis, I would be sitting there on my computer, because what else can you do? You're just stuck in a room for 14 hours. I would look up recipes. Okay, when I'm transplanted, this is what I'm going to cook, and this is what I'm going to make. My little goal was to be able to eat the food that I was not allowed to eat. Because, you know, when you're deprived of the foods, the salts, the phosphorus flavors, you look forward to that post-transplant. And that was a key thing for me, just to be able to eat a meal, a simple meal without Foslo post-transplant. Okay. So besides the, you know, making it easier to read the pill bottles, the charts, is there any other tips that you could give parents?
Well, I would say don't give up, because I felt like a total failure sometimes. I felt like, you know, we weren't communicating. I felt like she was kind of shutting me out and kind of shutting down emotionally. And that's, you know, that's tough, because, you know, we had a really good relationship, and it was really affecting our relationship. And same with her dad. We were, you know, pretty much telling her what to do all the time. And part of that, I think, leads to, I think Lori and I have talked about this before, but it's kind of a learned helplessness where kids will just give up, and they'll just do, you know, they'll just do what they're supposed to do because they're told to, but they don't really grasp the importance of why they're doing it, or like Meg said, to have goals or anything. They shut down. And so you want to make sure that they're engaged, because like I said, these are things that they're going to learn tools to carry them on into adulthood of how to take care of themselves and their transplant. And, you know, my daughter's had 2 transplants. The first one lasted 7 years, and now she's 4 years post-transplant, but she had hemodialysis for 3 years before her first transplant. And that was really tough on her, and required a lot more medications. The second time she was on PD for 5 years, and she did manual exchanges at home 3 times a day. And it was much more empowering for her. She had more control over her dialysis. She felt better, and she had very little fluid or food restrictions on PD. So that was a huge just kind of a growth in her maturity and her ability to take care of herself was doing the PD and having a healthier experience. So, I think you have to look at what modality they're on and what's working for them and explore other things, talk to other parents, talk to Lori, because there's a lot of good information out there. So a little bit about food. Meg, how did you deal with food that you weren't allowed to have, or were you able to enjoy some of it? Or like you said, you weren't wanting to eat much. So, how was the food thing for you when you were on dialysis?
So my relationship with food went downhill very fast. I didn't enjoy eating anymore. When in my case, a lot of 90% of what I ate was restricted. My diet came down to boiled rice, boiled chicken, um, uh, almond milk. Oh my gosh, I can't even remember. Like iceberg lettuce, all these other things in moderation, and it just sucked. All the color out of my diet was gone. I had to take Foslo with every single bite, and that was tough because it just left a disgusting sour taste in my mouth every time. I lost 45 pounds. I went down to 92 pounds. So for a 5'8" girl, that's it's not a comfortable position to be in. Um, I knew there were things that I couldn't have. And sometimes I would forget, like, oh my gosh, I wasn't supposed to eat that, or I wasn't supposed to drink that. For example, one time I was with a friend, we were at a coffee shop, and I was having such a great time. I forgot that I was, oops, excuse me, guys. Can you still see me?
Yes, I think, let's see, I'm looking at the screen.
I don't know what I did.
Yeah, you're okay.
Okay. So, once we were at a coffee shop, we were having such a good time. I completely forgot that I was on dialysis and I took all these meds, and I accidentally ordered a full milk, high sugar, frappalapa something and drank it. And it was the most delicious thing I had. It was probably the first time I had something, that I wasn't supposed to be having. And immediately I started feeling it. I got extremely bloated. I didn't feel good. And instead of going to the ER, I knew I just had to start dialysis early that night. And I did, and I felt better the next day. So, and that was a good lesson. I learned that, okay, if I have something I'm not supposed to be having, these are the results of it. Directly impacted me. I felt it immediately. It was a good wake-up call. So after that, I was careful, but I would still sneak in a chocolate here or there, or a slice of cheesecake, but I wouldn't have the whole thing. I would have a bite. I would enjoy that bite to the fullest and call it a day. Or I would have bananas, but I would only have one little 2-inch piece of the banana and call it a day. So it was very hard being restricted. It's almost as if, your birthright of eating is taken away from you. And it was terrible. I didn't enjoy my dialysis episode of my life. But I learned to cook while I was on dialysis. I learned to cook, and I learned about food during that time. I learned that, yes, I can have herbs as long as they've been soaked in water for 5 hours to leach out all the stuff in them. Or yes, you can have potatoes, but again, they have to be soaked and leach out all the stuff in them. There were tricks to how you could eat certain things. And I'm not a medical advisor or medical person, but I've heard people tell me, yeah, you can have a slice of pizza as long as it's an hour before dialysis. I never did it. I was too scared. I learned my lesson with that milky drink that I had that one time. It was tough. It was a tough journey, and I'm sure a lot of people are experiencing that right now. But my advice to them is learn about your food. Don't tolerate your food. Don't try to avoid it, because your body still needs the nutrients. It still needs the proteins. Just learn about it. Learn how you can make it as flavorful as possible, as colorful as possible, without overdoing it. That would be my best advice. Just research what you can have and go from there. It's a start. Are you frozen? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's what I would have to say about dialysis and food is just start researching what you can have. And sometimes you got to eat with your eyes. You got to make it presentable. Instead of just having an apple, cut it up into cute little cubes, dust some cinnamon on it. Maybe that would help you a little bit. It's a different way of presenting food to yourself. You got to be creative with it.
I think she's freezing, Carol.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right.
There you are. You froze a little bit.
Oh no. Okay.
I could still hear her though. Could you hear her, Lori?
I can hear her now. She sped up a little bit. It's the
okay.
in the internet.
Okay, like I was saying, if you have an apple, don't just look at it and be like, ugh, an apple. Cut it up into cubes, dust some herb or some seasoning that you like on it that you're allowed to have. And then try eating it that way because it's still an apple, it's just presented to you differently. Maybe your brain will register it different. Your eyes are looking at it differently. So you might be more approachable to the item. What about you, Carol? When she was on dialysis, what was her relationship with food and how did you guys deal with that?
So when she was on hemo, we tried to introduce a renal diet. But, just like teenagers, her favorite foods were like pizza, French fries, Coke, things that all of those are like not good choices on a renal diet. So it was a challenge to get her to eat things, new things, because she wasn't really experimental with food. But the other thing that, and I don't like to hear this, my sister's on dialysis and sometimes she'll say, I can't have that. And I think, you can have things, you just can't, you can't have French fries every day. You can't have tons of salt and fast food. But if you go to the Renal Support Network, there's a post about kidney friendly fast food. And, you can help your child make choices that, because they're going to want things. And sometimes those things are rewards for other things. So, if you can find a way to have them enjoy food and not feel like, Meg and I talked a little bit about helicopter parenting where, you feel like you can't let up for a moment because their health is so at risk. But on the other hand, from their perspective, it's probably overwhelming and, it's not fun. So you have to try to still, as a parent, be flexible and look, they're going to find when they go off to school or something, they're going to find ways to get things that they want, even if you're not around. So, you present healthy choices, but also educate them. You can have French fries once in a while, just maybe get them unsalted and get a small order, little things like that help keep them going with things that they really love. And, pick your battles. It's not worth fighting over every meal, in my perspective anyway. So,
like you mentioned about helicopter parents, I do want to mention to everyone listening that my parent was most definitely a helicopter parent. She was on me for every medication, every meal. And please keep in mind that she works. She works overtimes, she works night shifts, she works day shifts. She would call when it's 9 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock at night, every time I was about to eat. She would pull out the time of her day and call. She was that invested in making sure, I was going to get to that finish line of receiving a transplant. She would make sure, because my relationship with food was so detrimental, I had to go on these prescribed protein shakes that were basically canola oil, protein powder, and a bunch of vitamins. And they were disgusting, but we figured out a way to have them. We figured out if you blend it with ice, you don't taste it as much and it goes down faster, but it was still nasty. And, one day I felt, what, I can't do it today. I had a moment. I had a weekday. I can't do it, Mom. I'm just going to go to school. I'm going to go on with the day. I just cannot have it today. But, I didn't say that to her. I just got up and left. I went to my class. Well, guess who showed up on my campus 30 miles away about 45 minutes later, holding my protein shake and making sure I had it? She did, because she was that, focused on me keeping my protein levels high and making sure peritoneal dialysis didn't get the best of me, and that I overcame that. So yeah, as a helicopter parent, as her being a helicopter parent, I completely understand her, and I completely understand you, Carol. You guys would go through hell and back to make sure we're okay. And I applaud parents for doing that, for not giving up, for just keep on pushing your kid. It's only for their benefit. But along that route, make sure there is somebody to take care of you while you take care of somebody else. You cannot do it alone. I had a village. I know Carol has family. I don't know everybody's situation, but it's always nice to have a hand, even if it's just a neighbor, coming by to give you your meal. That's a walk you don't have to take, that you can take a rest for. Okay, so moving on. What was the next question that you had for me, Carol?
How about taking meds with your food? You talked a little bit about that, but I know one parent had talked about her daughter could not swallow pills no matter what she did. She couldn't swallow the pills. And so they ended up crushing it up in applesauce. So I know there's things like that I didn't experience. But again, if you talk to other parents and other kids, you find out these tips for things that you're struggling with. So what about you? What about taking meds with your food?
The only time I took my meds with my food is if I was taking a multivitamin, because it's best digest when you have a meal, or if you take the binder, which sucked. I would kick, I would scream, I would cry. I would have a family member sitting right next to me at every meal, making sure I took it. It was that, intricate. It was that intimate of a relationship for me with food, that I had to have someone sit and make sure that, my levels didn't go out of whack. It was very hard. It's not an easy journey. Like, you will take one bite and say, I don't want to eat anymore. Or you can take 3 bites and say, I don't want to eat anymore. But the reality is your labs need to stay stable. The protein needs to stay high. And what are you going to do to get there? You're going to have to suck it up and do it. But my advice to other parents would be, just keep motivating them. Put your hand on the shoulder and say, I'm here with you. We're going to do this together. Take the pill. That's how I took pills with my food. How about Jenna?
Well, when she was on hemo, luckily she was still urinating. She never stopped. So she didn't have any fluid restriction, which was good. And same with food, her labs were typically very good. So she could, have a slice of pizza or whatever once in a while. But, I have 4 kids, and trying to do mealtime where, it was something that they would all eat, it was a lot of, chicken and vegetables and things that, they would all, they'd all agree to eat. But, if you serve it up and they don't know it's renal friendly. I mean, you just make it part of the family meal instead of saying, oh, you guys can have this, but you can't. I think that's such a cruel thing. I hear people go to, parties or Thanksgiving and there's nothing there they can eat. And, I think people need to be sensitive to that. Like, you don't have to change your whole menu, but, try to include the renal patient, educate yourself a little bit and make sure there's something special there for them. I mean, like I said, Coke, pizza, chocolate, French fries, it's like the staple of a teen diet. And, you have to find ways around it. So she did pretty good. She didn't fight us too much on it, but, I did have to present, healthy meals because she was young and she wasn't really, she was tired. She was, a little depressed. And I think food was just not a big big important thing in her life, so, and it, like you said, the things taste different, they don't taste the same, it's not as enjoyable as it is when you can have the things that you really love.
So in our house, I cannot eat grapefruit. I know a lot of transplant patients can't because it interacts with our medication. So we have a rule, we just don't buy grapefruit into our house. I had somebody come to our house as a visitor, as a guest, and they brought grapefruit. And my mother very kindly, very firmly let them know we don't eat grapefruit here because we don't want to taunt the person that can't have it. And
Yeah.
grapefruit was one of my favorite fruits, and everybody was very accepting and understanding of that. There was a little bit of questioning because they don't understand. Okay, but we can. And she basically said, like, let's take a step back and think about it from someone else's point of view. And sometimes it takes that pause. Let's think about this moment for other people to be understanding about certain diet restrictions. Okay, so is there a certain item that Jenna can't have that you kind of have made a rule, like, okay, this is just not coming into our house because Jenna can't have it, and it's just not kind to other people, or to her having other people eat it?
Yeah, so I mean, there were times when I would take the other kids, when she wasn't here or she was at dialysis, and maybe take them for ice cream or something, because it was a big change for them as well. The kids were like I said, that they were all younger than her. So at 14, 15, 16, she was the oldest. And, you want your other kids to still enjoy themselves and not feel resentful that they can't have things because their sister can't have them. I mean, I think that's just a really dangerous dynamic to get into. So, just like you say, you include the family, but you also, you educate them a little bit too about what they can have. And cheese, it seems like it's on everything. And,
Oh my God,
you
cheese.
it's so, I mean, I love cheese, so it's a tough thing to give that up.
Yeah.
Do you remember what your first post-transplant meal was?
Yes, this was something that I was craving my whole dialysis journey. It was chocolate muffins and French fries. And I remember waking up the next day, I think maybe a couple hours, like the first meal after you wake up that you're allowed to have after the anesthesia wears off. I said, Mom, can I please have chocolate muffin and French fries? And she ran, Carol. She ran to the cafe. She brought me the worst French fries and the driest chocolate muffin I ever had. But it was the most amazing first meal post-transplant that I ever had. How about Jenna? What was her first post-transplant meal?
So this I don't remember the first time because well, actually I do. I think she had a cheeseburger, but the second time, this last transplant, we were at UCLA and you had to go for labs, to the clinic every 3 days or so, 2 or 3 days. So we would go to she'd do her labs, and we'd go to the cafeteria, and she'd get eggs and 6 pieces of bacon because she hadn't had bacon in so long. And she did it every time. I mean, I'm surprised she didn't gain 400 pounds, but that bacon was so delicious to her, and pork really didn't smell that good to her when she was on dialysis. But boy, that bacon was a real treat for her. So yeah, I remember that being, I kind of look at the plate. Geez, I haven't had that much bacon in 3 years, but it's such a thrill when you can see them eat something that they really enjoy. So that was fun.
I'm gonna jump in here real quick because we're coming up on the
Sure.
time limit.
Yes.
And I think, Magna, you look absolutely wonderful. You're glowing. I mean, married life does you well. I have to say.
Yes, from your lips to God's ears.
I'm a little weird because all I wanted was an avocado. I don't know, maybe I just grew up in California too long, but that's a staple, right?
Yeah.
And, I've known both of you for a long time. Carol, you are just an incredible advocate for so many people. Carol's written a lot of things on our website about how to find a kidney donor. We can put some in the chat. She works tirelessly because she has several family members who are impacted with this. One of her sisters had a kidney, her other sister is waiting for a kidney, and her daughter has had a kidney. I think that's enough for one family. You don't need
My brother also is going to need one too. Yeah, the
Yes.
polycystic kidney disease is. Laura, I just want to say to you, thank you so much for the prom every year. When we first started going, so exciting to see Jenna just get out. Even she's very shy, but she still, she got a plate of food and she danced to the music. And, it really is special when they can just get out and see that there's other kids like them and they're not alone. And I really appreciate that every year. And it's a fun, it's fun for parents to get your kid dressed up and know they're going to go off. And, it's free, which was amazing to me. You just do a wonderful thing for kids.
I have to correct you on that. Nothing's free. It's at no charge to the participant.
That's true. It's not free.
Well, it's a wonderful, we're going to have, for anybody listening, we're doing the prom January 16th. It's always the day before Martin Luther King weekend. All teens from age 14 to 24 are invited. They can go to our website and they'll get an invitation. We have a fun evening planned for them, and it's going to be a hybrid event. So for those who are online, we'll get a fun gift in the mail to participate, and they'll have a chance to meet their peers. So thank you so much, both of you, for attending, and a shout out to our corporate mission partners for making this happen.